From rural town to a small island, and across a traditional valley in my country, there is one reality that stands out. No one can study without water. No one can grow a business without water. No one can prosper without water. Good morning. My name is Bastián. I'm from Chile. I'm a journalist. 3 years ago, I traveled across Chile to understand what water scarcity means in the life of real people. And today, I'm sharing these stories as told by the people who live them. On this journey, carrying only an old camera and a microphone, I met the many faces of water. I met Delcy, a hardworking rural entrepreneur who sells empanadas every day. Despite her effort and determination, her business could not grow because basic sanitation was missing. I also met Eduardo, who used his creativity to build a system that pumps water with only 2 old engines from old cars. His goal was to protect green areas in his town during dry seasons and avoid harming tourism, the main source of income for his community. And I also met Diogenes, a farmer whose livelihood depended on a small stream that fed his land and allowed his fruits to grow large enough to get a fair price at the market. These are only a few of the many stories I saw. Together, they show a simple reality. Water is key driver of jobs, of development, and of prosperity. It runs across every value chain, but it also holds families together and keeps dreams alive. I have worked with young people for the last 4 years, and during that time I have seen their desire to talk about water and inspire others to take care of this vital resource. Caring for water is everyone's responsibility, so that no one's dreams are left behind now or in the future. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
Growing up in Cameroon, safe water was not always guaranteed. In 2010, I saw a cholera epidemic tear through communities, not because people were careless, but because safe water was simply not there. I saw young girls walking hours to collect water and then arrive at school too tired to learn. I saw young people with skills and ambitions who could not keep a business running because the supply kept running out. This is what sent me into this work. Not a textbook, a simple reality I could not look away from. My name is Danielle Kamtie. I co-founded the African Youth Parliament for Water, working with communities, local authorities, and governments across 24 African countries. Because we know that young people do not only care about water and sanitation, they also care about all the opportunities that water makes possible. Think about the jobs, the schools, the businesses that can actually stay open. From Cameroon to Zambia, to classroom in Canada, everywhere I go, I meet the same young people. They are not asking to be saved. They are asking for things to change. Because they know, and we know, that water is not only about thirst. It is about whether you go to school, whether you keep your job, or whether your country can build, feed, and sustain itself. The Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, deadline is in 2030. That's 4 years from now. The people in this room and those watching from every continent will be the one living with whatever is decided here today. So, the question here is not whether water matters. The question is whether the people in this room are ready to move water forward. Not someday, but now. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2026 spring meetings of the World Bank Group and the IMF. Welcome to Water Forward. I'm Julie Hyman, senior anchor at Yahoo Finance, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's session. Let's give a round of applause to our opening speakers, Danielle and Bastián. Today, we will show you that water is foundational to opportunity. It shapes job creation and whether people can learn, work, and grow their businesses. We do want this to be an interactive discussion, so you can share your thoughts at any time by using the hashtag WBGmeetings, and our team is standing by in multiple languages at live.worldbank.org to respond to your questions. You can also submit questions through the live chat or via the QR codes that are displayed around the room. The stories from Danielle and Bastián remind us of what's at stake, how water shapes real lives and can create future opportunities. Now, to turn that into action at scale, please welcome the president of the World Bank Group, Ajay Banga.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all here. We're going to get to water in a minute, but I have to start with what's on many people's minds right now, which is the situation in the Middle East. And I would be remiss if I didn't start with that conversation. Yes, tensions and uncertainty remain very high. The world is watching closely. The key question, of course, is both the duration, but also the level of impact on energy infrastructure. The economic effects are already showing well beyond the region where, of course, the impact is the most severe right at the beginning. And of course, the impacts are asymmetric. It depends a little bit whether you're an oil importer or a net exporter. It depends a little bit on the storage capacity you may or may not have. It depends a little bit on your fiscal headroom. There are many things that make this asymmetric. But yes, the impact is spreading, and it's starting now to hit Asia, and it's spreading to Africa. For developing countries, these pressures will persist because these compound already tight fiscal space and high debt. And that's the environment that we are heading into for these spring meetings. Now, our role at the bank, our people, are dedicated to helping our clients manage through moments like this, but we have to keep an eye also on what comes next. So what we have done is to prepare a crisis response in phased steps. We are hoping for peace, but we are preparing for a more prolonged disruption, as you would expect us to do. First, immediate liquidity. Because of the tools that we put in place over the past few years, like the crisis toolkit, countries can now draw on pre-arranged instruments, contingent financing, existing project balances, and they can move quickly forward without new approvals. Second, we can reprioritize what we already have in the pipeline. We can reorient parts of our portfolio and the pipeline to support crisis response while staying anchored in medium-term development priorities. Third, we could go further and scale up from our balance sheet. We have the headroom to increase financing through new financing, through guarantees, through private sector support, if needed, the use of crisis buffers and front-loading. What does all that add up to? Today, using the crisis toolkit, clients are able to access somewhere between 20 and 25 billion very quickly in a day, kind of thing, if they're part of that system. In a contained scenario, this could expand to 50 to 60 billion over the coming 6 months. And if the conflict resumes and the economic fallout persists, then that could scale to 80 to 100 billion over 15 months and more when you kind of combine that with their ongoing financing. Just to give it in context, during COVID, the bank put 70 billion to work. So you can see we are trying to create a set of data, information, facts, and figures, and a toolkit to be able to respond at scale if needed, but in a phased manner. One thing that would be important through all this, for all our people and those of you who are affected, is to do no harm to your fiscal situation long term while managing to make sure that those most affected in your countries, in your societies, get the help they deserve and that they need from you. I know this is easier said than done, but targeted, temporary, transparent work will be better than blanket fiscal systems, which also hurt your future fiscal position. Again, I said, it's easier said than done from a stage, but our job is to work with you to make this happen in the best possible way. Now, we don't control the headwinds of conflict, but we do control how we respond. And I just made one example of how we respond. But the point here is to work that we pursue today is to create opportunity for our people in the future. So we want to do three things. Invest in infrastructure, physical but also human capital, policies and regulations that improve governance, enable entrepreneurship, enable private sector to grow. That's where the jobs get created. And the tools that scale investment, particularly from the private sector in a world of constrained public finances. Whether you're in the developed world or the developing world, we've all got fiscal challenges. So for the next hour, we're going to focus on only one of those areas, water. At the World Bank Group, everything we do comes back to one outcome, jobs. Because a job is dignity, a job is stability, a job is hope. It is the most effective way to reduce poverty. A friend once told me that poverty is both a state of being and a state of mind. Being we can solve with an earning or even with subsidies. A state of mind you cannot solve without the hope and dignity that comes from being a productive member of your society, at whatever level that be, as a small entrepreneur, as a small farmer, or as part of a medium enterprise that is scaling, or as part of a large company, local or global. That optimism and that dignity is what we are focusing on. And as you heard from some of the speakers before me, water is kind of the prerequisite for those jobs, because when water doesn't work, economies don't work, farmers can't grow, businesses don't operate, cities cannot attract investment, and young people, as you heard, most often the young girls and women spend hours collecting water instead of building a future for themselves and their families. So let's be clear, water is not a side issue. Water is foundational and fundamental. Water is as much of a human right as electrification is. And just as we focused on connecting 300 million Africans to electricity by 2030, this is equally important in making sure that people feel that we are giving them a level playing field to win with. In the Philippines, I'll give you examples, by the way. In the Philippines, improving water and sanitation has helped to unlock tourism. It has created more than 50,000 jobs. In Nigeria, better water storage and irrigation has allowed farmers to increase productivity, to increase incomes. In Poland, investments in flood management have made cities more investable. That attracts private capital. It obviously creates the jobs that follow. Different contexts, very different countries, same end result. Globally, water-dependent sectors, agriculture, tourism, mining, manufacturing, already support more than 1.7 billion jobs. You will soon hear from Aliko Dangote, an old friend of mine who's helping the bank in many ways, including with his contribution to the private sector investment lab. What he's focusing on right now is water security for Africa. But guess where he's building that off? He's building that on his work to strengthen energy security on the continent, a very valid topic in today's world, including very large-scale investments that have expanded domestic refining capacity and reduced the reliance on imports. What he's trying to show is that the private sector can demonstrate both the vision and the ability to deliver at scale. It needs the right cooperation with government, the right policies, the right guardrails. He will be the first to say that. But what he did with energy, he can do with water. Now, if he can do that by supporting irrigation and investing in water for health, then we can demonstrate how water security underpins industrial growth and economic development. So the opportunity is clear. The question is, how do we make this the norm, not the exception? And that brings me back to reform. When tariffs reflect costs, services improve. When regulation is credible, investors step in. When utilities are financially viable, capital flows much more readily. That's how you build the foundation to deliver reliable water at scale across entire communities. Isolated projects, no matter how well-intentioned, do not drive transformation. But when efforts are coordinated, when policies, institutions, and investments are aligned, then you tackle the root constraints and you deliver real, lasting impact. That's what Water Forward is about. Let me be clear about the ambition that we have here. Nearly 4 billion people face some form of water insecurity, 4 billion. Together with our partners, the other multilateral development banks, you will hear from them later, as well as other institutions and the private sector, we have begun to align our efforts around that challenge. And at the outset, to be honest, we had no idea what scale we could reach. But based on the commitments you will hear today, we believe that together we can deliver water security to 1 billion people by 2030. That is what partnership delivers. For our part, the World Bank will reach 400 million of that 1 billion, but you will hear from our other partners how ambitious they themselves are to be a part of changing this future. Importantly, please understand, this is not a new fund. We are not doing less there to do more here. That's not the idea. This is a platform for delivery, an organizing approach to bring together policy, financing, and implementation at scale. Progress happens faster when efforts are organized around a very clear but country-led and country-driven plan, and you will hear from country leaders who understand and embrace that. Progress is what this is about through country ownership. So in energy, through Mission 300, connecting 300 million people in Africa to electricity by 2030 with our partners, the African Development Bank. Or in health, through HealthWorks, we were trying to reach 1.5 billion people with improved access to primary health care by 2030. And all of these, we are making progress. Over the course of the spring meetings, you will hear very impressive numbers that show the result against these. We're applying the same approach here through country-led water compacts. It's a very simple idea. Governments define their reform priorities, they define their investment plans, and partners, development banks, governments, philanthropies, most importantly the private sector as well, align behind that plan. One direction, less fragmentation, that means scale. This effort is underway in more than 25 countries. We are formalizing 14 country compacts today with a dozen governments here to mark this step forward. The demand is real, the opportunity is real. But let me close with this. Water may seem basic, but as I said, it is economic infrastructure. I actually believe it is human capital at its best. Physical capital that enables human capital at its best. It determines whether people are healthy enough to work, whether children have a childhood to learn and to explore, and whether businesses can operate and economies can grow. Ultimately, whether countries can create jobs at the scale that their people need, and frankly, they are demanding from all of us. We have countries stepping forward. We have partners aligned. We have the tools that work. The question is, we need to deliver at speed and at scale. And that is what today's event of Water Forward is all about. So I thank you for being here with me, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Ajay, thank you. Now joining us is one of the world's leading business leaders, President and CEO of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote. Aliko is one of the most influential business leaders at the forefront of private sector growth and job creation. He can help us better understand how water security supports industrial expansion and economic development. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. The President of the World Bank, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is an honor to join you today for the launch of Water Forward, driving jobs and prosperity. I commend the World Bank for putting water where it actually belongs. At the center of the development, growth, and competitiveness agenda, we must say this clearly: water is economic infrastructure. It is an important to development as power, roads, ports, and digital connectivity. The evidence is compelling. The United Nations has shown that 3 out of every 4 jobs globally are either heavily or moderately dependent on water. When water system fails, labor markets, agriculture, industry, health, and human capital suffer. They are not, sanitation tells an equal urgent story. In 2024, global coverage of safely managed sanitation rose to 58%, but 3.4 billion people still lacked safely managed sanitation services. Among them, 1.9 billion had only basic sanitation, 560 million used limited services, 555 million use unimproved facilities, and 354 million practice open defecation. These are not abstract numbers. They mean a lot. I mean, they mean lost productivity, higher healthcare cost, lower school attendance, weaker labor force participation, and slower growth. Poor water sanitation and hygiene conditions still account for more than 1 million diarrheal deaths every year. So when we speak about water, we are speaking about health, dignity, productivity, and economic opportunity. These burdens falls especially heavily on women and girls. In sub-Saharan Africa, women and girls remain the primary collectors of water in nearly 80% of households without direct water access. Across and globally, they spend 200 million hours every day collecting water. That is time taken away from education, from work, entrepreneurship, and the rest. If we want African agriculture to become more productive and resilient, then water must be treated not only as a social issue, but as a productive issue. Irrigation, storage, watershed, management, drainage, and rural water infrastructure are tools for economic transformation. They stabilize yield, support agro-processing, reduce volatility, and improve rural incomes. In all the farms that we operate today, we use what you call drip irrigation. And that actually helps. It gives us, rather than us having just 80 tons per hectare, we get up to 150 tons per hectare. So water is just an important industry. Manufacturing depends on reliable water supply for processing, cooling, cleaning, and operational continuity. This is especially true in refining, fertilizers, cement, food processing, beverages, chemicals, and mining. You won't believe that if we don't have quality water, we cannot refine our oil correctly. There will be problems. So both fertilizer, oil refining, they need clean, treated water. In our refinery, we have storage of 440 million liters. So now in Nigeria, we have about 400 dams, of which I believe Dangote and the World Bank should work together to make sure that we put these dams to use. We would like to put money on the table, and we would like to partner with the World Bank to make sure that we have these dams to work. Because 400 dams, you have them to work. Even if it's 50% of them, they will have a lot of people a job. So, and I think we should actually try and partner with the World Bank and do this. So the climate dimension defines the urgency. The World Bank has warned that water scarcity intensifies by climate change, could actually cause some regions up to 6% of GDP by 2050. Water-related disasters already dominate the global disaster landscape. Nigeria itself knows this cost very well. During the 2012 flood, which we had in Nigeria, more than 360 people died, nearly 4 million were displaced, and damages and losses were estimated to cost about $17 billion. In 3 Nigerian coastal states, flood, erosion, and pollution were estimated to cost about $9.7 billion in 2018 alone, equivalent to 2.4% of GDP. So the economics of water are not only about supply, they are also about resilience, avoided losses, and long-term competitiveness. This is why the water agenda must be approached as a full economic strategy. We need stronger systems across the entire value chain: source protection, storage, treatment, conveyance, distribution, wastewater management, reuse, drainage, irrigation, and flood control. We need stronger data, stronger utilities, better regulation, and better project preparation. And we need financing models that protect the poor while allowing systems to remain viable. That is why Water Forward matters. It is helping shift the global conversation from fragmented interventions to systems-wide partnership that mobilize investment and unlock productivity. At the Dangote Group, we understand that the transformation requires investment in foundational sectors across cement, fertilizer, refining, food, and logistics. We have seen repeatedly that infrastructure deficit raise costs and weakens competitiveness. Water is one of those foundational systems where it is weak, businesses improvise at high cost. Where it is reliable, economies grow faster, communities are healthier, and value chain deepen. So how does water matter? For Africa, young population, water means opportunity. For women and girls, water means dignity, time, and inclusion. For farmers, water means yield, higher yield, and income. For cities, water means resilience and livability. For business, water means efficiency, competitiveness. For governments, water means stronger growth and lower vulnerability. So what must be done? We must invest more aggressively in bulk water supply, treatment, and distribution. We must modernize irrigation and support climate-smart agriculture. We must strengthen sanitation and wastewater systems. We must upgrade urban drainage and flood control infrastructure. We must improve utility performance and sector governance. We must build pipelines and bankable projects that can actually attract blended finance and long-term capital. That is why I strongly welcome Water Forward. It captures the right idea at the right time. That water system must become engines of jobs and lasting prosperity. The Dangote Group stands ready to support that broader ambition. We believe in Africa's productive capacity. We believe in long-term investment. We believe in partnership. And we believe that when water moves forward, jobs move forward, industry moves forward, and prosperity moves forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that powerful private sector perspective, which is so vital to all of this. Before we turn to country leadership, we have a video message from someone who is bringing global attention to the urgency of water. That's Matt Damon. He's been a leading voice on water access for years, helping elevate this issue on the global stage and championing solutions that expand opportunity. Let's hear from him now.
Hello, I'm Matt Damon, co-founder of the Water.org group. For more than 30 years, we've worked to expand access to safe water and sanitation. We started with Water.org, a nonprofit that helped reimagine water financing, enabling small, affordable household loans through local financial institutions. We then launched Water Equity, an asset manager directly investing into water and sanitation. And we built Water Connect, which develops utility-scale infrastructure projects that attract capital and expand essential services. Together, these efforts form a single approach, unlocking financing at every level, from households to utilities, to help close the global water financing gap and ensure that more people everywhere have access to safe water and sanitation. And through this work, one thing has become clear. Water isn't a charity issue waiting to be funded. It's an economic opportunity waiting to be unlocked. For decades, we've proven this from the bottom up. When people have access to financing and the right systems are in place, they invest in their own solutions at scale. And from there, we've expanded to developing and investing in critical infrastructure, helping ensure resilient water and sanitation systems reach low-income communities. Our next big step is Get Blue, a movement Water.org is launching next month alongside leading companies like Amazon, Gap, Ecolab, and Starbucks, bringing businesses and consumers into the effort. And today, with Water Forward, we're seeing that same principle take shape at a broader level with governments, development banks, and the private sector aligning around a shared agenda, country by country. The capital to solve this crisis already exists. It just needs to be directed. This is exactly the kind of momentum the moment demands, and we're excited to support the World Bank Group in helping drive it forward. Because when everything starts pulling in the same direction, water stops being a problem to manage, and it becomes the foundation for growth, health, and resilience. Thank you.
Let's turn now to country leadership and how this becomes action on the ground. What you're about to see are water compacts in practice, country-led commitments to reform, investment, and delivery. Our speakers will deliver their remarks in multiple languages, so translation headsets are available for you all. We'll begin with Her Excellency, the Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Prime Minister? Oops, sorry.
Mesdames et
Ladies and gentlemen, today talking about water is not just talking about development, it's talking about the future, the world that we are building. In a century centered around climate, energy, and economic transitions, controlling natural resources becomes key for our collective path. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is at the heart of this path, with over 50% of freshwater reserves in Africa. Our country has part of the answer to tomorrow's major equilibria. For water is a condition for health, food security, prosperity, and economic growth. Our responsibility is clear. Turn this potential into tangible progress. Through the Presidential Pact for Water, we are aiming for 60% access to drinkable water by 2035, with a program representing $20 billion. This means more jobs, more productive economies, and transformed local economies. Results are already underway. By way of example, the Kinelenda project in Kinshasa is improving water access with a direct bearing on access, dignity, and productivity, benefiting nearly 3 million people in Kinshasa. But we have systemic ambitions, as together water and energy lay the groundwork for tomorrow's economies. Through the Energy Compact, we are accelerating electricity access, and together with INGA, we carry a vision for the continent, a connected, productive, sovereign Africa. At the end of the day, the real question is not what Africa represents today, it is what it will make possible for the world tomorrow. Our vision is clear: make the Democratic Republic of the Congo a key player in water and energy transformation worldwide. Therefore, with the Water for All initiative, we are working with partners in a logic of impact, innovation, and shared responsibility. The DRC is ready. What about you? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. We'll now hear brief commitments from each minister, and we'll start here with the Minister of Albania.
Okay. Distinguished guests, partners, and colleagues, it's a pleasure to represent the Republic of Albania in this initiative, the Water Forward initiative, which is a clear commitment of our country for the long-term water security. Albania is one of the most promising tourist destinations currently, and this is worldwide known, while water supply and water sanitation is very important to the core of its economic growth. Thus, water supply and water sanitation is not just a public service, but it is also a core pillar of the economic growth of Albania. With regards to the reforms that Albania is currently undergoing, It is definitely the modernization of its water supply and sanitation, its consolidation, the commitment of 1.3 billion euros until 2030 in order to have access, widely access to water supply and sanitation, and to ensure the long-term security of the water. Now we can speak long about water and how important it is. I would summarize it in 4 words. No water, no life. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Minister from Angola.
Thank you. In Angola,
rapid urban growth combined
service delivery and the expansion of infrastructure continues to pose challenges to implement or to make available universal access to water and sanitation. Nevertheless, through our WASH Compact, we are strengthening coordination, we are implementing institutional and regulatory reforms, we are improving the performance of the utilities, and we are also working closely with our multilateral partners to make water and sanitation available for all. So the government is totally committed, and we are counting on the partnership coming from the World Bank Group and other multilateral partners to deliver that important need, to cover that important need coming from our citizens. Muito obrigada.
Thank you. Minister from Cameroon.
Bolivia.
Bolivia. Oh, pardon me.
Yeah.
I skipped in the alphabet.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to give my statement in Spanish, some technical words. Bolivia.
In Bolivia, agriculture, families, and productivity are vulnerable in light of climate. Low productivity, specifically related to the biotechnological gaps, the high reliance on rain-fed irrigation, inefficient, almost inexistent irrigation system, limited water management, limited access to financing, and very low private sector investment. We also have very high levels of pollution and no policies to in water management. The new government, in its 2036 plan, is aiming for water security for families, agricultural resilience, and environmental sustainability. For that, Bolivia is working firmly with a lot of will, coming up with laws and rules to transform productivity management and use irrigation in a modern way. We will also train and raise awareness on water and the environment and provide public-private investment to catalyze development, create employment, increase productivity, and maintain a good balance with our environment. Thank you.
For honoring Cameroon by your invitation to join this flagship event. My country is blessed with water resources. However, rising challenges are impacting negatively access to water and food security. As we did with Compact 300, for Mission 300, we are convinced that Water Forward is an important initiative, and we join for 3 main reasons. First, we think it is important to have an integrated, holistic management system of water resources. It is critical. Second, we do believe also that optimizing budget allocation is of essence. Third, it is clear that reforms are important to support the transformation of our economies based on access to major resources like water. These reasons have led us to join this important initiative from the World Bank Group, and we do believe With this initiative, we'll be able to mobilize the necessary resources coming both from multilateral as well as private sector, and to ensure that we achieve together Sustainable Development Goal number 6, which is about access to water and sanitation. Cameroon is ready to play its role, and we appreciate all the contribution coming from our different partners. I thank you for your kind attention.
Merci.
Thank you. 400 million Africans don't have access to clean, drinkable water. President Alassane Ouattara is a champion of the African Union 2063 Green Agenda, and 2026 has been designated as the Year of Drinkable Water. We have a 70% access rate to, or 77% access rate to potable water, and serious disparities between rural areas and urban zones. The compact for water that we are signing will allow us to guarantee 32 million people in Côte d'Ivoire reliable access to water, reducing regional disparities, catching up in sanitation, and protecting its 4 major river basins. Furthermore, this compact, which is a structural solution, will allow us to more easily access financial markets and to reinforce sustainability of the sector, mobilizing $7.6 billion US dollars, including more than $1 billion in private capital by 2030, in order to guarantee water and sanitation to all. Thank you very much.
Jamaica. Yes.
Mr. President, Excellencies, colleagues, as climate risks intensify for island states, Jamaica is committed to strengthening the sector to deliver resilient and efficient water services that underpin national development and secure jobs. Jamaica's Water Compact 2030 positions the country on a clear reform path, delivering universal access to safe, reliable, and affordable water and sanitation while strengthening climate resilience. Jamaica is indeed proud to work with the World Bank Group on this Water Forward initiative, as we believe it puts us in a position to achieve our Vision 2030 and indeed the UN SDG 6. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. from Jordan.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As you may all know, Jordan is one of the world's most scarce, water-scarce countries. Demand far exceeds supply amid climate change and regional pressures, but also population growth. But we are taking scarcity into opportunities, further enhancing utilities, efficiencies, working on governance frameworks, long-term viability or sustainability of the water sector, and strengthening climate resilience. We're happy to be part of this initiative and launching the Jordan Water Compact 2030, advancing a number of policies and key investment pipeline for the next few years, where we aim to secure new and sustainable water resources through large desalination, continue to work on reducing non-revenue water losses while maximizing the value of reclaimed water, contributing to economic prosperity, food security, but also better and dignified jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister of Kenya.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Kenya, despite the fact that it is the largest economy in East and Central Africa, the 6th in the continent in terms of the size of economy, it is like two countries in one. There is the greener southern part of the country, and the western part of the country is relatively green, but the bigger chunk of the country, the northern part, is like arid and semi-arid region. And that, therefore, puts a lot of pressure in terms of water scarcity and demand. Kenya is facing a widening gap between growing demand for reliable water, sanitation and irrigation, and a limited climate vulnerable supply with inadequate service coverage, high losses, low storage, and over-reliance on rain-fed systems, turning water insecurity into a macro fiscal risk. We are working with the Kenya Water Compact, which will help us in closing the water access gap through a results-driven blended finance program that scales investment and strengthens governance and service delivery performance, and mobilize private capital to deliver universal access to water and sanitation and double climate resilient irrigation by 2030. I would like to conclude by saying that realizing the importance of water and other sectors of the economy, we have identified 4 pillars. That is air and sea transport, there is highways, energy sector, and water as very critical to our economic progress and growth. And that is why we have recently enacted a bill, which is now an act of parliament, and has set up a fund, which we call the National Infrastructure Fund, with the seed capital raised from divestiture of public assets and privatization of public assets. We have raised about $3 billion US, and we are going to target private capital investment and crowding in private sector capital to support water alongside other key pillars of our economic progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Minister of Senegal.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. In Senegal, water is not like anything else. It is not a resource like others, but rather a primary condition for our existence and sovereignty. Each year, over 10% of our GDP is lost because of water insecurity. And each day, without potable water, a little girl can't go to school. A farmer won't be able to produce his crops, and hospitals won't be able to care for patients. So you can see that water provides the promise of dignity, which cannot be kept. And thus we must act, and act fast. That is why we are so pleased to be here to launch Water Forward, and to be here to celebrate the World Bank Group and the President and its vision, and his vision. Thank you for this initiative. You are working for food for all, health for all, education for all, connection for all, and you've worked with AgriConnect. Now you're working for water for all. We're proud of the work that you do and how you stand at the side of our country. Senegal is committed to work with you. Thank you.
Sierra Leone?
Yes. Good morning. Well, in Sierra Leone, we are richly blessed with abundant water resources. Yet water security is a compelling development paradox. Just 10% have access to safely managed water. 25% still practice open defecation. And only 12% benefit from basic hygiene. Low access to water supply, sanitation and hygiene, we know, cost a lot of lives, but also hinder livelihood and really suffer efforts at economic growth. The initiative for Water Forward and our $1 billion national compact for water, we believe will promote utility reforms, will improve water governance, will ensure that we deliver services efficiently, ensure that there is real access to water in Sierra Leone by 2030. We join the bank and other partners to leverage private capital to invest and ensure that the private sector reforms and participation in the sector will be able to deliver our intentions as written in the compact. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, Uzbekistan.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The growing global water scarcity makes the rational use of water resources a matter of national policy level, placing it at the core of the Uzbekistan 2030 strategy, which sets 10 concrete targets to be achieved by 2030. They include scaling water-saving irrigation technologies to 100% of irrigated land, which is 4.1 billion hectares, reducing system losses by 25%, achieving complete access to safe drinking water, strengthening financial sustainability, and ensuring climate resilient and digitally managed water resources. Over the past 5 years, Uzbekistan has invested more than $5.9 billion in the modernization of irrigation networks and introduced the water-saving technologies, including $1.4 billion from international financial institutions. And as a result, water-saving technologies now cover over 2.7 million hectares, including more than 606,000 hectares under drip irrigation. Together with the World Bank, we have developed the Uzbekistan Water Compact, fully aligned with the updated Uzbekistan 2030 strategy. Water Compact is not a project. It is a national platform for transformation, integrating reform, institution, and investment under 3 pillars: water for people, water for food, and water for planet. We highly appreciate the World Bank's partnership and leadership in supporting this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also want to acknowledge the commitments from Cambodia and Vietnam, who could not join us today in person. This is the statement from Cambodia. Water insecurity is driven not by scarcity, but by the need to strengthen sustainable water management and service delivery. Through the compact, Cambodia will improve sector governance and strengthen service providers to deliver reliable water services. And Vietnam's commitment. By 2030, Vietnam will ensure sufficient water supply for domestic use and economic development, reaching 100% of urban households and 80% of rural households. The country will strengthen water security through integrated water management, improved infrastructure, and stronger governance systems. And I want to thank you all. This is what country leadership looks like when commitment turns into action. Thank you all for your time today. Thank you. And those voices are why we're here today. So let's talk about now how we deliver on the promises that we've heard about at scale and with urgency. How can we align policy reform, partnerships, and financing to turn commitments into large-scale water delivery and into jobs that we've heard so much about today? So we're going to dive into that conversation right now. Please join me in welcoming now Reem Alibali Radovan, Federal Minister for Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany, Carlos Piane, Chief Executive Officer of Sabespi, and Kate Hampton, Chief Executive Officer of Children's Investment Fund Foundation. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much for being here. Okay. Carlos, I want to start with you. Sabespi, the largest water utility globally in terms of the number of people served. And last year, there was a private investor, Equatorial, took an equity stake in the company, appointed you as CEO. You've been raising funding from markets to finance investment to increase access. So one of the key elements today is wanting to learn how to raise that money from the private sector. So what can you tell us? How do you get that private capital interested in the water sector?
Julie, we believe that 3 requirements are necessary to be achieved to raise capital. First, regulatory policy visibility. I think water assets are long-term duration assets. They need stable and robust regulation. Contracts need to be respected, and tariffs need a clear path how they are adjusted. Second, I think you need institutional credibility and governance. To execute the market requires professional management, capability, accountability, because usually capital follows execution, credibility. And lastly, what's required is a bankable collection of projects. Ambition alone doesn't do it. You need to have objective projects that can be financed against it with clear goals attached to them. And that combination is what makes it interesting. Sabestri didn't raise that capital because of scale. It did because of this combination. We're 18 months into the privatization. We raised $6 billion so far. We invested last year $3 billion, 2.2 times more than when the company was state-owned. We did roughly 3,000 household connections per day last year, right? We brought water to approximately 1.8 million people, sanitation, collection, treatment to roughly 6 million people, generating 40,000 jobs in our construction sites. We already contracted roughly $8 billion to provide universal access in our concession area until the end of 2029. So all in all, I think it's treating the water asset not only as a public service, but also as an investable asset class with rules-based order and conditions.
That really makes it concrete, I think, especially hearing those numbers. Kate, I want to turn to you. Philanthropy, some people describe it as risk capital, that you were able to go where markets won't go, perhaps, where governments can't go quickly enough. So in the water sector specifically, where do you see organizations like SIF sort of paving the way to de-risk that innovation and crowd in for other partners? And then when do you know when it's time to sort of step back on the philanthropic side and let those other partners take over?
Thanks very much, and thank you also to the World Bank for this really, really exciting initiative that we're happy to be part of. Philanthropy is really useful when there are good ideas and something works, but it's not being deployed at scale. So just to give an example, first we can help prove delivery models as we're doing for citywide school-based wash systems in Addis currently. We need to find cost-effective ways to deliver so that governments can then adopt them. A second way is taking early performance risk on results-based approaches. As we see more results-based financing, somebody's got to do the risk capital to enable that to happen. And third, supporting upstream systems. That means policy reform, it means good data, it means delivery capability through country-led platforms. So it's reducing uncertainty with this flexible funding. We get out of the way when it's budgeted for by governments, utilities are delivering it, and financiers can step up with confidence because the risks are understood. But let's be clear about success. Success isn't about money moving. Success is about quality, sustained services and benefits realized. It's about kids growing up with clean running water at home, safe, affordable sanitation at home and in school so that they can lead healthy, productive lives.
So we've got the private sector perspective, we've got the philanthropic perspective. Let's get the government perspective now. Minister, Germany has championed water and sanitation. Now the job is, and the job has been, of translating that commitment into those durable economic outcomes for people. And of course, that requires more than political statements when we're talking about jobs and growth and utilities that work. So from your experience leading Germany's development cooperation, what are the conditions that need to be in place to make that water reform stick? And when does concessional finance make the difference there?
Well, thank you. And before we discuss water reforms, let me just underline, because we just heard the countries, that water is the strategic resource of the 21st century. And it is also about geopolitics. And we're seeing it right now in the crisis in the Middle East with attacks, targeted attacks on desalination plants. So that shows very clearly also the geopolitical aspect of water. And of course also water is a human right. So when we discuss reforms, we need to put this context in it. So 3 conditions are crucial for reforms. First, political ownership. Water reforms only work, of course, when they are truly led by governments on national and local level. Second, strong institutions and functioning utilities with clear regulations. And third, of course, international cooperation. Water security is a global and regional challenge. It doesn't stop on borders. This is why we need international cooperation in this, and we combine it with concessional finance, which helps, it allows governments to invest in climate resilient water and sanitation infrastructure, and it can help to de-risk investment, and crowd private capital. So we combine all those things together.
And I think what I'm hearing from all of you echoes back to something that Ajay was talking about, which is alignment. That word alignment really stuck out to me. We're talking about aligning policy and financing and partnerships in all of these situations. I want to thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much. Thanks. Now let's hear how that action translates into real opportunities through the voices of young people. Commitments have been made. Let's now hear from those who need those commitments the most. From Cambodia to Madagascar, Lebanon to St. Lucia, young water champions are making their voices heard. The short film that you're about to see was made possible by WaterAid, whose work with youth advocates around the world ensures these perspectives shape global action.
Water is life. It's hope.
And it is an opportunity we cannot afford to miss.
We have to act now and act together.
We know that without action, the crises we are already facing will only continue to deepen.
Billions of people without water, food systems collapsing, communities uprooted, economies destabilizing, and conflict over something we should all have.
The threat is real, but it is not inevitable.
It is a crisis we can solve if we move together.
Now, what's needed is commitment, long-term thinking beyond election cycles and quarterly profits, investment in resilient infrastructure,
smart agriculture,
reliable water system,
decent toilets, and good hygiene.
For everyone, not just a few.
Because every dollar invested in clean water
returns far more in health, stability, and economic growth.
The path forward demands collaboration.
Governments, partners, businesses, individuals working as one.
Because water connects us all.
This is a moment to act together.
To assign policy, finance, and delivery.
And to turn commitment into results people can see and feel.
Now is the moment to stand together and deliver
the one thing
that makes everything else possible. Water.
Water. Water.
Water.
Water.
Now we turn to financing partner commitments. This is about collective alignment, there's that word again, demonstrating that financing institutions are ready to move together in concert, not in parallel. We'll now hear from the heads of multilateral development banks who have committed to joining Water Forward. That includes Ajay, president of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, Carlo Monticelli, governor of the Council of Europe Development Bank, Nadia Calvino, president of the European Investment Bank, Ilan Goldfein, Inter-American Development Bank president, Scott Morris, vice president of the Asian Development Bank, Mark Bowman, vice president of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and Dr. Zamir Iqbal of the Islamic Development Bank, the vice president there. Each will deliver a short statement announcing their institution's contribution and beneficiary targets.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Zhou Jiayi from Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. It is my privilege to join with colleagues, leaders of other MDBs to address a central development challenge, that is water security. Water is the most critical human basic need. At AIIB, we look at water as fundamental to infrastructure systems, which underpins economic growth, jobs, and economic resilience. Our focus is on water-related infrastructure. Over the past years, we financed projects in the areas of water supply, sanitation systems, irrigation systems, and also protecting communities from water-related disasters. Our projects and investments protected, and supported water security for at least 90 million people. And AIIB, we are also having our annual flagship report, which is Asian Infrastructure Finance. And this year, our flagship report also focused on water and water governance. We are going to launch our report tomorrow. However, the scale of the challenge requires actions more than a report. So our goal is to provide water security to at least 100 million population by the year of 2030. AIIB as one single institution, our contribution might be modest. However, by working together, we can really turn our ambition into results. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Happy and honored to be here. I'm Carlo Monticelli, the Governor of the Council of Europe Development Bank, Europe's only social development bank. Water is essential to our mandate. Unequal access to safe water and sanitation drives inequality. It harms health, undermines dignity, and limits opportunity. Water insecurity hits low-income households most, particularly in marginalized communities. This is the vulnerability gap we at the SEB work hard to close. Investment in water is at the same time an essential contribution to economic infrastructure and a powerful equalizer. Safe water supplies and sanitation transform daily life. Irrigation sustains jobs and livelihoods. Flood protection prevents avoidable losses. Projects in that area help build resilience and social cohesion. Plus, water risk is climate risk. And for the SEB, climate change is also a social crisis. Scarcity, droughts, and floods hit the most vulnerable the hardest and can disrupt economics and societies. Today, we are proud to join the Water Forward and commit to improve water security for at least 3 million people. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Nadia Calviño, President of the European Investment Bank, one of the largest institutions financing water infrastructures around the world, with flagship projects from Pakistan to Jordan to the Gambia. This week, we will be signing an important loan together with the World Bank, actually in Papua New Guinea, to provide clean water in urban situations, in urban regions. And that's why I am so proud to join the Water Forward initiative and to pledge contributions to provide clean water for 300 million people by 2030, a very important contribution to the 1 billion target. Furthermore, I want to tell you that next year, the European Investment Bank is going to be chairing the Multilateral Development Bank family, and we will make water and resilience one of the 5 top priorities where we hope to be delivering concrete results, bringing better livelihoods, life opportunities around the world. Congratulations and thanks for the opportunity, because these partnerships are exactly what the world needs now. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Ilan Goldfein. I'm the president of the IDB. The IDB is the largest development bank in Latin America and the Caribbean. And I'm very glad to be here, part of these initiatives of having us together to deal with a very important water issue. Water is key for livelihood and is key for economic framework. We are glad to join the Water Forward. Ajay, all my colleagues, everything that we heard before, we would like to pledge that by 2030, we will reach 50 million people just in Latin America and the Caribbean. And that means that you can reach indirectly even more people, 76 million people. So that will reach 126 million people. So this initiative is a very important initiatives that mobilize us, that give visibility, that puts a framework for us to continue working, to have projects at scale, to improve institutions, and to mobilize private sector. Thank you very much.
Colleagues, good morning. It's an honor to be here on behalf of President Kanda of the Asian Development Bank. And let me say, in Asia and the Pacific, water security will shape our future. ADB's flagship publication, the Asia Water Development Outlook for 2025, highlights both progress and urgency. Over the past decade, 2.7 billion people have been lifted out of extreme water insecurity across Asia and the Pacific. Yet 4.1 billion remain vulnerable, the result of an increase in rising water-related disasters, persistent investment gaps, and environmental degradation, all of which are threatening our hard-won gains. MDB collaboration to confront these challenges is essential. So today I'm pleased to announce 2 actions on behalf of ADB. First, through the Water Forward Initiative, ADB will target reaching 100 million people in developing economies in Asia and the Pacific by 2030 with safe water, sanitation, irrigation, and greater resilience to floods, droughts, and storms. Second, ADB will coordinate efforts to ensure that the second joint MDB water financing report will, for the first time, measure not only finance, but the people we reach, placing beneficiaries at the center of impact and aligning with the goals of the Water Forward Initiative. So looking beyond 2030, we will continue to strengthen our role to become the leading partner for water security for Asia and the Pacific, and as we look forward to the UN Water Conference in 2026 and ADB's annual meeting in Nagoya, Japan in 2027. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Mark Bowman, Vice President at the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and it's a real pleasure to be here today, and I can say that the EBRD very strongly supports the Water Forward agenda. This agenda very much aligns with our approach to the water sector, our emphasis on integrated water security, financial sustainability, and mobilization of private capital. And critically, I can say that we are committed to working together, to working in partnership behind single country-led plans. Water is a strategic priority for the EBRD. It's reflected in our infrastructure sector strategy, our green economy, our economic inclusion strategies. It's a key component of our flagship Green Cities program, which now spans more than 60 municipalities across our regions. Our focus is investing in sustainable and resilient water systems, combined with policy dialogue, working with partners to improve regulatory frameworks, the functioning of utilities and SOEs, and helping to create the conditions where the private sector can invest. We finance sovereign, subnational, private sector projects across water supply, wastewater treatment, irrigation, desalination, and we provide PPP advisory support to support well-structured, bankable solutions. And while we operate on a demand-driven basis, the EBRD estimates that our support could enable access to improved water services for around 20 million direct additional beneficiaries by 2030, although our impact will be much greater, taking into account the policy work that we can all do together. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. There is no doubt that water lies at the heart of climate resilience, food security, and human development. Yet the scale of global water insecurity requires a fundamental shift from the projects to coordinated, scalable solutions as envisioned under the Water Forward Initiative. The Islamic Development Bank fully aligns with this vision. Building on our operational performance and pipeline, ISDB is committing to reach approximately 85 million beneficiaries between 2026 and 2030 across the 3 pillars of water for people, water for food, and water for the planet. This target is data-driven, aligned with our annual work program, and grounded in our financing capacity, ensuring both ambition and deliverability. Across our existing portfolio, we are already delivering impact at scale. For example, under Water for People, the Turkey Water and Wastewater Recovery and Resilience Program, which is approximately 200 million euro from ISTB, and the total envelope of 2 billion in co-financing, is improving urban water and sanitation services and resilience, targeting 17.5 million people. Under Water for Food, the Kazakhstan Climate Resilient Water Resources Development Project is supporting over 300,000 hectares of irrigated land, benefiting hundreds of thousands of farmers and strengthening food security. Under Water for the Planet, the Oman Climate Resilient Flood Protection Dams Program is safeguarding about 670,000 people from flood risk. We stand ready to work with all the partners to scale up financing and to mobilize innovative instruments and deliver water security at scale in order to reach our global goal of 1 billion beneficiaries by 2030. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much to you all. And we also want to welcome the new development bank, which is joining Water Forward. They're not here with us today. They have committed to advancing water security for 70 million people by 2030. And as Ajay said earlier, the World Bank Group is stepping up to reach 400 million people, driving jobs and economic growth. Now, we began today by listening to young people. Before we move forward, we want to return to those voices because they are the reason this work cannot wait.
Water is where everything starts.
A job becomes a harvest.
The harvest becomes a livelihood.
And livelihoods build nations.
With a reliable supply of clean water,
decent toilets,
and somewhere to wash,
childbirth is safer.
People are healthier.
Young people stay in school.
adults work,
Businesses grow.
communities thrive.
every drop carries life.
And more.
It carries opportunity.
Change starts with water.
Because water is not just survival.
It is security,
Dignity
And a chance to build a better future.
It creates jobs.
and fuel innovation.
When people have water,
They can unlock their own potential.
From small villages,
to growing cities.
water can power jobs, productivity,
And local economies.
Because the future of work,
The strength of economies
The resilience of communities.
and the safety of our planet.
all flow from the same source.
the foundation of jobs,
and prosperity.
The one thing
that changes
Everything.
We've heard now from countries and financiers, now partners in action. The leaders joining us now represent different institutions, each with a concrete stake in making Water Forward deliver. Please welcome Alvaro Lario of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, the president of IFAD. Abdul Hamid Al Khalifa of the OPEC Fund for International Development, the president there. Lorenzo Ortona, Deputy National Coordinator for the Implementation of the Mattei Plan for Africa, Prime Minister's Office, Italy. Abdullah Balala, who is the Assistant Minister for Energy and Sustainability Affairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the UAE. Maaike van Ginneken, the Netherlands Envoy for Water. Michael Goldsman, Senior VP of Sustainability, the Coca-Cola Company, and Tim Wainwright, Chief Executive of WaterAid UK. Now, we've asked each of them to answer one question in one sentence. What is your commitment to Water Forward, and how will it help turn water action into jobs and economic opportunity? Mr. Lario?
Thank you very much, dear Ajay, Secretary General, Excellencies. IFAD is very happy to actually be part of the this platform for delivery, as the President Banga mentioned. 70% of global fresh water withdrawals go to agriculture. But unfortunately, for example, in sub-Saharan Africa, only 6% of cultivated land is irrigated, which compares to 40% in South Asia. This means that for farming to really be a viable business, you really need adequate access to water infrastructure, to storage, to irrigation techniques. This means, and we know that solar power pumps, drip systems, can really effectively increase yields by up to 100%, which also has a big impact in terms of income. IFAD looks forward very much to co-invest with all of the MDBs, the public development banks, the governments, the private sector, to mobilize. And concretely today, we are pleased to commit to announce that we are committing to reaching 6 million rural people and small-scale farmers by 2030, which also complements the 70 million rural farmers that we committed also through AgriConnect with the World Bank. Thank you very much.
Thank you. OPEC Fund has a long history of working in water sector in many countries, especially small island developing states. And we have a very good track record. Currently, we are connecting or securing water access to more than 10 million people by 2030, but also we are committing $1 billion that will enable us to connect additional 15 million people by 2030. To answer the question, I think we have, as development institutions and development partners, to focus on two issues. First is to benefit from the technology development. I think technology is in our support now, and we can benefit from technology on providing more water resources to many people, not necessary for urban use, but also for agriculture use, as the speaker before me indicated, the president of IFAD. Second, I think we have to also put more efforts on financing tools or financing instruments. And we have a good track record in using the financial instruments attracting private sector as in the energy side. Energy before 2000 it was only or mostly supported by the governments, but now mostly energy generation is done by private sector. So let's get together and also invest in the research to attract private sector and mobilize, as Ajay said in his opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, buongiorno. Italy is very pleased to join today the Water Forward initiative, integrating it into its broader vision of the Mattei Plan for Africa, where water stands as a core pillar of the 2026 agenda, in line with the African Union agenda. We are already working to expand our joint engagement with the World Bank, and at least 5 macro projects already in the pipeline of the 2026 joint commitment, building on the successful partnership that we already achieved in 2025 in the energy sector through the Mission 300 initiative that Ajay mentioned. Italy commits to leverage its recognized know-how and expertise, especially in our private sector, as well as to mobilize resources to support water investments in Africa that can improve African lives while unlocking jobs, economic opportunities, and greater resilience. Thank you to the World Bank for this very nice initiative. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Excellency Secretary General, Excellency Banga. For us at the UAE and as a co-host of the United Nations Water Conference at the end of the year, allow me at the beginning to invite you all not only to attend, but to partner and work with us in order to bring this precious resource to where it's truly belongs, but also to make an impact by that time and beyond. With regard to the question, which I don't believe should be answered in 1 minute or one sentence, as you said, I would say the UAE have done a lot, and we're still willing to do more. In January, we've announced our platform for water, and we committed $1 billion for 10 million people. And we are opening up for additional billion for whoever wants to partner with us. At the technology front, we have launched the Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative, which is in partnership with XPRIZE. The purpose is to come up with a desalination technology that is scalable, sustainable, deployable, but also affordable. And it will be, some results will be featured at the UN Water Conference. I'm glad to be here today, and I think I want to commend Ajay, who's a colleague and friend, and the World Bank Group for announcing the Water Forward. I think it's very timely and much needed today. Thank you.
The Netherlands is a very proud water country. And we're very excited to be part of Water Forward. For jobs and growth, as we heard, but also for climate, for health, for human dignity, against hunger and for peace. Count us in. To my friends of the World Bank, count us in as our long-term water partnership, 25 years, will deepen it. Count us in as the 7th largest IDA donor. And as a first additional contribution for Water Forward, count us in to set up a Netherlands Bank Water Academy. To our friends from other MDB, count us in to be the voice of water on your boards. Count us in to be the largest water trust fund donor in many of your institutions. Count us in for those partnerships. To the ministers of governments who've led the way with compacts, count us in for sharing our know-how. Peer-to-peer, utility-to-utility, business to government. We can complement the billions of dollars that Water Forward will leverage with deep water know-how. So count us in to the objective of 1 billion people getting extra water security. I did do a little bit of math. I think we're over 1 billion in pledges. I'm not saying anything. And I think I want to echo Danielle from Cameroon this morning, who said, let's move water forward, not at some later day, but now.
The Coca-Cola Company supports Water Forward because water is essential for our business and the communities that we serve. It's for that reason that since 2015, we've been returning to communities and nature more than 100% of the water used in our finished beverages in partnership with other stakeholders and investing in more water-efficient agriculture, water access and sanitation, as well as climate resilience. For example, through funding from the foundation and other partners, and through initiatives led by the 2030 Water Resources Group, a multi-donor trust fund here at the World Bank, of which we're very proud to have been founding partners. We are investing in Uttar Pradesh to help smallholder farmers there use more water-efficient technologies and develop more climate-resistant livelihoods to weather the changes that we're all seeing. The Coca-Cola Company and Foundation will continue to invest along with others to drive the water forward and water security.
Thank you very much indeed, and I'm so happy to be here. And Ajay, I particularly wanted to thank you for your leadership in this area. Water underpins health, education, gender equality, economics, and jobs. And as you said, it's utterly foundational. Progress has been too slow, and weather extremes are now taking us backwards, not forwards. The solutions are often surprisingly simple. What has been missing for decades is sufficient political will and finance at the scale and quality that this issue needs. And Water Forward is bringing those two key ingredients today. That's why I'm so happy to be here. Water aid is 100% behind Water Forward, actually 150% behind. And we want to focus on delivering especially to the poorest people, especially to women and girls. And our contribution will be to work in partnership with governments, that's at national but subnational level as well, and the utilities to ensure locally led, sustainable, and resilient delivery of these targets. Because water is the foundation of everything, and none of us can live without it. Thank you.
Thank you all. I know it was not an easy assignment, so I appreciate you being succinct, but of course, luckily, the conversation and commitments will continue. Thank you again, appreciate it. Thanks to our partners in action for their commitments to Water Forward. Well, we have heard from our guests and speakers, but remember, we also want to hear from you. You can share your thoughts at any time by using hashtag WBGmeetings. Our team standing by in multiple languages at live.worldbank.org. Remember also to respond to questions. So today we're seeing the full picture, why water matters for jobs and growth, to how countries are turning commitment into delivery, and how partnerships are scaling that impact. We've heard a lot, from youth voices to public and private sector leaders and our multilateral partners. The question now is, what comes next? So to bring it all together, please join me in welcoming again to the stage President of the World Bank Group, Ajay Banga.
I'm not coming alone. I am bringing the Secretary General of the United Nations with me. So he's going to help us close it out. I've got 3 things to say, and I'm going to hand it over to him. The first is we started by recognizing the challenges that the Middle East conflict is creating for many of our clients in the developing world. Please understand that is critically important to us, but we have to do that while also keeping our eyes on the medium and long term. Water is a critical part of keeping our eyes on the medium and long term. The second thing is alignment, the word alignment that Julie picked up on. It is critical. We are trying to align public policy with private investment, with the institutions that enable this to be done at scale. A project here and a project there will not get us to these kinds of numbers without the partners announcing what they've all announced, for which I'm amazingly grateful, as well as to the governments. We would not get there. That's the second point. The third point comes to why, and I think it's so important for the UN to be here. When the first trip that I learned about water as a big discussion all started in the Middle East. It started with 3 countries. I was in Jordan, and we had a conversation about water challenges. I went to the UAE, and I met, as my friend from the Emirates was saying, I met His Highness, the MBZ, and the first thing he tells me is, water, water, water. Let's have a conversation. Then I go to Saudi, and I end up with His Highness MBS. And guess what they say? Water, water, water. And I came back and started talking to our team and said, what are we missing here that doesn't link up to what all of them are saying? And from there started the idea of making a commitment to water. And it's very fitting that the next UN Development Conference on Water in December will be in the Emirates. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to the Secretary General to help bring us to a close. Thank you. Thank you.
My dear friend Ajay Banga, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to express the full support of the United Nations to Water Forward, and to congratulate Ajay Banga, the World Bank, and all the partners for moving ahead with this absolutely essential initiative. A few comments of why this is so important. First, because water is life. And there is no strategy for sustainable development that can be successful if water is not an essential part of that strategy. And also, there is no way to organize a set of policies for the well-being of communities and people if water and sanitation are not in the center of those policies. A very simple example. It's absolutely impossible to speak about public health if there is not a very strong investment in water and sanitation. Second point that makes this initiative very important is that we face a tremendous gap. We have billions of people that have no access to water and no access to sanitation. for their health, for their economic activities, for the development of their countries. And this tremendous gap needs to be addressed. It is totally unacceptable in our world to see that water is still something that is not considered a basic human right of the whole population of our planet. And then it is also clear that there are many obstacles for most of the developing countries to address this gap. Some of these obstacles are structural. They have to do with the legacies of the past. They have to do with enormous difficulties in putting in place adequate governance systems. But there is an essential question of resources. And the truth is that there is a gap. I believe, according to the estimates of the World Bank, the gap is of 1 trillion per year in relation to water. And it's not that there is not enough money in the world. The problem is that our global ecosystem, economic, financial, and institutional ecosystem, was not conceived to make sure that the money that exists goes to where it's more needed. And so the gap is there. And we need to address this gap. But unfortunately, in the present situation, we have a number of countries that face a dramatic challenge. They are highly indebted. And not only they are highly indebted, but they have a lot of difficulties to access capital at reasonable cost. They, first of all, deviate many of the resources that would be needed for education, for health, for water, to just pay their debts or service the debt. And on the other hand, we have today African countries that will pay interests 3 times higher than the interests paid by my own country, which of course makes it extremely difficult for them to do the investments that are necessary. So we have a combined problem that needs to be seen together. Political will, good management, and availability of resources. And that is why this initiative is so important. Because it's an initiative that drives the political will of governments. It's an initiative that doesn't simply put money on the table, but looks into the water and sanitation question as something that is linked to an integrated development policy, something that is linked to food, that is linked to planet, that is linked to the well-being and the health of populations. And so this integrated vision is a vision that allows for an adequate management of these resources in the context of a global development strategy. And third, because this is very much pointing to the need of innovation, to the need of solutions in which we bring together very relevant partners, namely of the private sector, in order to make sure that resources that are scarce, based on innovation, can be multiplied in the impacts in relation to the needs that we need to satisfy. And so, for all these reasons, we strongly support this initiative and will do everything for our agencies to be fully engaged in helping the efforts that we will be developing. Allow me one final note. As Secretary General of the United Nations, I am worried with the fact that there is not enough international cooperation in the management of resources that are international in relation to water. One of the things I'm proud is that when I was Prime Minister of Portugal, I signed with the President of the Government of Spain an agreement that established the common management of our water resources. But unfortunately, when I look at today's world, I see a number of situations in which there is a serious problem of water management, and that serious problem of water management needs to be addressed at an international level, bilaterally or regionally, and I do not see in many situations enough political will. And let's not forget, it's not only a question of better management of the water, it's a question of if in certain circumstances this can drive situations of conflict that we need to avoid at all costs. And so I would like to make a final appeal to all governments in order to intensify the multilateral approach to water management in the world. The conference that will be in Abu Dhabi will address this problem, but bilaterally or regionally, it's absolutely essential to address the present problems in which we have a mismanagement of water resources causing serious problems to populations for the simple reason that governments are not able to have the meaningful dialogue that is necessary to establish the kind of agreement that people thought impossible between Spain and Portugal and that we did more than 30 years ago. I wish all of you the best success in this initiative, and I once again strongly congratulate those that promoted it, and in particular the World Bank. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Mr. Secretary General and to Ajay for their leadership. That brings us to the end of today's event. We hope that you found the discussion informative and engaging. You can watch the replay of this session and other spring meetings events at live.worldbank.org. Please continue the conversation online as well. You can use the hashtag, as we've been talking about, hashtag WBG meetings. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us.